Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Failures to Fortunes podcast, the show where we fearlessly dive into the untold stories of real estate investors' greatest setbacks and how they turned those failures into resounding successes. I'm your host, Kate Berry, and we're talking with real estate investors across the country to learn exactly how and why they failed, and how they took that failure and turned it into a powerful lesson for their business. So come along with me, Kate Berry, on this transformative journey from failure to fortune. I invite you to join our supportive community where together we can inspire, educate, and motivate each other to achieve all of our real estate investing goals. Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Failures to Fortunes podcast. I'm your host, Kate Berry, and on this show, we fearlessly dive deep into the journeys of real estate investors and agents who have turned their failures into fortunes. We are so excited to be here today with our guest, Tony Cook. He is the COO at Bay Property Management Group out of Baltimore, Maryland. So thank you so much for joining us today, Tony.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to it. Pretty excited to dive in.
Okay, great. So let's get right into it. How did you get started into property management? I know you've been with the company for 11 years, which is an amazing run in property management. I feel like it's one of those fields where you're either in for a year or you're in it for quite the long haul. So tell us how you got started.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I like to make a joke, and sorry to all the plumbers out there, but when you look at the different contractors, the trades that property management companies use, I would say plumbers, it's the dirtiest job. It just naturally is. And so I say property management is kind of like the plumbing of real estate outside of the trade. So you better love it, and alcohol helps as well. I'm kidding.
Yeah, it
But
is a dirty job. It can be,
it is. It's
certainly.
a hard job. You're basically on a tug of war match all the time with tenants and owners, and it can be a challenge. But for me, so my degree is actually in accounting. I dropped out of high school back in 2004, literally in 12th grade, like 3 months from graduation. Yeah, it was
You're like, I'm out.
just not a smart move at the time. But anyway, took a couple of years off, went back to college, went to RIT and got a degree in accounting. And I landed a job at Morgan Management up in Rochester, New York, doing their book, working in their books. Ultimately, within 2 years, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, said, "Hey, I want to move to Maryland," which is about 6 hours south. And, I didn't have any experience with moving or dealing with anything big like that. So I said, whatever, let's do it. Let's take the risk. I wanted to stay in property management because that's all I knew after college. I ended up landing with Bay Management Group in the accounting department, and I've essentially worked my way up since then and became the number 2 guy about 8 years ago. We're just
Wow.
continuing to grow and grow and grow. And property management is something you learn every single day. You're learning something new every single day. And that's what I really like about it.
How many units or buildings does your company manage?
Yeah, so we manage 6,500 right now, and that, give or take a
Wow.
few. Yeah, we're not small like we were back in 2013 when I started.
Yes, I'd love to hear what has the growth been like when you first started to now?
Yeah, so it's crazy. When I started, I was the 12th hire. And so we were
Mhm.
working out of a row home in Baltimore City. I mean, we were packed like sardines, the 12 of us. The owner actually lived upstairs for a bit and would come downstairs and work. But yeah, we had, when I started, I don't know, 900 doors, which to me, to most of your listeners, that's probably a pretty big company. For us at the time, we just had aspirations to be 10 times ahead of where we are right now. So basically just a ton of marketing, a ton of figuring out how to best optimize operations, and there were no real departments set up. So I came in and I'm like, yeah, we have accounting but in a leasing team, but there's no people overseeing things. It was like a free-for-all, really.
Right.
And
So
so
did you come from a property management family, background? I mean, what got you into it and what interested you about property management?
yeah, it's a good question. So out of RIT, I worked with the Career Center for, I don't know, 6 months or so, and there was nothing, no good opportunities coming my way. I was going to be a CPA and decided not to do that because back in 2009, they added a bunch more requirements just as I was getting ready to go for it. And I'm like, are you kidding
Oh,
me? So I was like, let me take a little breather, let me get a job. And that was the best paying job, honestly. I'm like, I want to do books, whatever industry, I don't care, just get me in. And it was property management, and I understood it really well. So
right.
that's
Yeah,
kind of what got me in.
the numbers are relatively simple in the real estate world, right? When
Yeah.
you're in property. Can you go maybe work through a little bit of what accounting or, financial literacy looks like in property management? What are you really working with numbers wise?
Yeah, that's a good question. For the people doing accounting and property management, forgive me, but it's not a very difficult accounting. I'm not going to lie, there's much more complicated. It's rents coming in. We're managing on behalf of landlords. So your folks that are listening that want to get their own properties, they would hire us. We're going to collect the rent. So that's basically the only cash flow coming in is from your tenants. So you got your rent money coming in, and then you're paying your contractors, all your different vendors, getting the property rental license, lead, sir, all the compliance stuff. We're pulling our management fee. So we have our whole management company books. Then we're distributing the funds to the owner. And so
Mhm.
we're managing two sets of books. You have the properties, all the tenant and owner stuff, and then we use QuickBooks right now, which we're outgrowing for all the management company stuff. And, you're going to have your bank recs, your different reconciliations with the rents and whatnot. But it's honestly, if you have the right platform like AppFolio, like we have, it's not overly complicated. It's accounts receivable and accounts payable at the end of
Yep,
the day.
that's right. And why would a owner landlord want to use the property management company? I work with a lot of owners that self-manage.
Yeah, of
What is the
course.
benefits to having a property management company?
Oh my God, they're limitless. There's a caveat. The right property manager,
Yeah,
just like any industry, you go get a financial planner, a real estate broker, whatever it is, you need the right person. And a lot of people come to us having worked with other management companies and they're scared. They're like, I was burned. And I get it. I got ripped off with the costs. They weren't responding to me. It's out there and it's
right.
rampant. I will say that. So there's
Yep.
fear behind this. Make sure you vet out your management company very, very well. I would start with that. But why would you come to us? It's interesting. We actually just looked at this data. 70% or so of the owners that come to us have never had a property management company. They were self-managing, and
Wow.
which is interesting. They did it
Yeah,
for a while and they got to a point where they said, I don't want to do this. There's many reasons. Largely, I believe it's due to legislation and people just want their time freed up as well.
yeah,
So, the dream, people talk about it a lot on social media and whatnot, is get a property, hang out on the beach, have your margarita or whatever, and let us do the rest. We can do that for you. And most management companies should be able to do that. The problem is most don't do it. So you got to be
right,
very careful. And owners typically, and I'm the same way, I have my own properties with Bay Management Group, they want to have some level of involvement with their
right.
particular property. They never want to fully let it go, which is smart. It's really smart. So we have accidental landlords too, divorces, job transfers, deaths happen, and people, we call them accidental landlords. They're stuck with this property. It's maybe there's not enough equity to sell it. And they're
Yeah,
just like, I need to rent this thing out. We also have a lot of people in the military and government officials in the Northern Virginia and Baltimore area where they're coming back in 3 years and they just need to temporarily rent it before they can move
right.
back in.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question is who are your clients? How do you reach them? And who do you like? Is there a certain type of building or property or owner that you enjoy working with the most?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I'll answer the last one first. I love single family. I love
Right.
managing single family. Our team loves managing single family. It's multifamily is great. Our niche is the 1 unit to 100 unit. Once you get above the
Hmm.
100 units, it's very competitive out there. And the demands that the investors are going to put on you are pretty significant with the reporting, the requirements, the expectations. It can be a lot. And we just haven't really ventured into that territory. The single family stuff, there's not many good property managers doing it. You have a lot of
Right.
franchises, but they don't have the support they need from corporate. And so
Hmm.
for us, single family homes it's a comfortable place. The small multifamilies, 2 to, 20, 30 units, those are not so bad. We really like those. 99% of our business comes from SEO. So just
Interesting.
Google. Yeah, people go
Yep.
into Google and you type in property management in any territory we're in, we're going to be first. And
Nice.
we've spent a lot of money and time on that. And so we have a ton of reviews and that's how they reach us. And then
I
we
can
we do a good
imagine
job.
it's definitely a pain point moment for an owner when they're dealing with difficult tenants or an eviction or they're looking at their books and saying this property isn't making any money for me, like help, property management, you know.
That happens.
Can you go into a little bit about why property management is good for, I mean, of course, it's the ease and taking off the stress, but how does it affect the valuation of the asset? Does it help?
Yes, it should. It doesn't
Right.
always. Not with us. It better. That's something I look at. It's something I'm pretty critical with our team on the KPIs and looking at the numbers for the property. And we have triple checks on invoices and things. So we're
Mhm.
not going to allow an invoice to slip through that's completely inflated and ridiculous. We're going to shoot that thing down. The thing I preach around the company is treat the property like it's your own.
Mhm.
And how would you handle this? Like, would you just allow all the tenant to destroy the property and just put anyone willy-nilly in it? No, you wouldn't. And so treat it like you're the owner. I know it's not one to one, but it can be close to that.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
the biggest way we can help is comes in the front end, right? So getting the right tenant in there, screening them properly. We take a long time to screen a tenant, and by a long time I mean like 24 hours. But it's someone doing it. They're
Yes.
looking at credit, criminal, they're looking at pay stubs, they're calling former landlords, they're actually doing the work. Whereas a lot of landlords that are busy with a full-time job and have a property or two, maybe you're a doctor, you have no time for that. You're just going
Right.
to throw someone in there based off what they seemed like when you met them. And they're going to doctor up pay stubs and stuff. We have good ways to detect all of that. So getting the right tenant is key. If you do not have the right tenant, forget about it. We're not going to turn your tenant from I don't even know the best term, from a awful tenant to a great one. That's hard to do.
Right. You
It's
got to
human
find the great
nature.
ones.
Yeah, we find the great ones, we put them in, and we have less than a 5% delinquency rate. When owners bring us their tenant, we have a 13% delinquency rate. So it just
Wow.
shows you the difference. So more rent's going to come in. Of course, you're paying the $100, 150, whatever it is for the management. But at the end
Yep.
of the day, think about maintenance. So you call a plumber out. They're
Mhm.
looking at somebody with one or two property as a retail customer. They're
Right.
not treating you as an investor because you have one or two properties. Now, when you're
Mm.
managing 6,500, we have a lot of control over pricing. They're going to be more flexible with us. And so if they're charging you, let's say 150 an hour, if you were to call them out, they're going to charge us maybe 100. And so
Right.
each time you get a call, that's going to add up. At a minimum, the management fee should be paid for through those savings, but it should be
Absolutely.
better than that. It should be way better
Yes.
than that. And I'll give you, you want me to give you a bad story we dealt with
I'd
last year?
love a bad story. Yes.
So, and it happens in Baltimore City, you are required to have a rental license.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of areas around the country do. Now, a lot don't, but a lot do. If you do not have a rental license in Baltimore City, you are not legally allowed to collect rent at all.
Hmm.
So we had an owner come to us with their tenant in place. They were paying rent. Everything was good. Okay, cool. 3, 4 months into it, the tenant caught wind of that law. They're like, wait a minute. They looked it up and this property did not have a license.
Wow.
We were actively pushing the owner to get one, but there's work that needs to be done to get the license. And so there's
Mm.
no license. They caught wind, they filed. The owner had to credit back like 4 months of rent. And so
Oh
there
my
was like, it was like
God.
$6,000. It's like, holy crap. We, the whole time, were hounding the owner, like, you need to fix this, paint, do whatever. No chipping paint. Didn't want to spend the money. Well, they ended up spending 6 grand right there. So
That illustrates a really great point. It's called property management, but it really is people management, right?
100%.
Like you're managing the owners and the tenants both and making sure everyone's doing their job. Tenants to do their job, they got to pay their rent on time, but owners have to do their jobs too
They
in
do.
terms of maintaining the property and following state and local protocols and policies and licensure. And I've found that if you can have both sides doing their job, you've got a great relationship. Then you have tenants that will pay on time and they probably won't go after their landlord. If they're happy tenants and the owner is a happy owner, then you've got that's the recipe. But getting it to that point is not so simple.
No, it's a relationship. It very much is a relationship, and it must be maintained at all times for sure. You don't want to place a tenant and then never talk to them again. No, you got to check in with them, see how
That's
things are
right. It's
doing.
a relationship. Yes, you got to check in. They've got to feel the love.
Yeah, so our property managers each have about 100 to 150 doors they manage, and they're checking in all the time with their tenants. Like they become almost like friends sometimes because like they know family members. It becomes like a thing.
Yeah,
And some
yes.
people would say that's not good business. Like, no, you actually do want to have a really good relationship with your tenant. One, they're going to report stuff in a good way.
Hmm.
They're not just going to
Yes.
bombard you with they're actually going to care about your property.
Yep.
And that's key. It's something as simple as the tenant not cleaning out the gutters or telling us they need to be cleaned depending on the lease. If they
Yep.
don't do that, you're dealing with a massive leak in the basement or through the wall in the living room, whatever. You need a tenant that cares about your property, and they're only going to
Yes.
care about your property if you care about them.
Yep, that's right. Then at the end of the day, it benefits the owner because you're now on top of your property maintenance. The costs are going to be much smaller
Yep.
over time versus a large cost when wow, this is massive deferred maintenance. If you're trying to turn it over or get something up to market rent with a new tenant, but you've got now not only are you going to have the expense, but maybe a loss of rental for a month or two, have the vacancy. And all
Yeah.
of those numbers, I mean, really add up. So I think anyone listening to this that owns properties is doing self-managing, the cost, like you said, you're paying for yourself through what you save on top of the time and energy and your
Yeah.
expertise
Yeah.
and your vendor list. You come with so many resources that is value that you're bringing.
Yeah. And people these days, we all have Amazon. Like people want convenience. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, there's platforms out there like Zillow and other mom and pop shop apps you can get on your phone to collect rent, do maintenance and stuff. It's not good enough. There,
No.
the one we use is so robust. We make things so easy for people to communicate with us and get fast response times. And our resources are pretty extensive, when it comes to vendors we use, attorneys we have on hand, where if you have a tenant issue and you have one property and a full-time job or two or 10 properties, do you have time to be researching an attorney? Do you have time to be interviewing them? And we already have it done.
It's already done. Yeah,
We
you're
have
coming
discounted
with the
rates.
systems that's so much leverage. And I love hearing where you are now. Take us back though. This is failures to fortunes, right? So 11 years ago, you
Yep.
moved to Maryland, never been there before. How do you get from moving somewhere brand new to being 11 years in a very successful company that's growing and with the amount of expertise that you have? How does that happen?
Trial and error, taking big risks. I was pretty anxious as a kid and a teenager for sure. I come from a pretty poor family, not super educated. Most of my family's fairly anxious
Hmm,
people. We were closed-minded, stayed in our lanes, etc.
sure.
Moving away changed me completely. And actually my family still asks me all the time, like, how'd you get to this point? And just trying something different, taking a big risk. I said to myself, what's the worst thing that could happen? You're just moving 6 hours away. If it doesn't work, move back home. So I moved down here and I worked with a recruiter who called me and said, I have this small management company. The owner's like a visionary. He's going to grow, et cetera. And he's looking for young talent or hardworking people. He didn't say young talent, hardworking people. And I said, okay, cool. I'm going to give it a shot. There was zero benefits, zero benefits, but I saw the potential. And I said, there's 12 people here. Guarantee I can grow in this company.
Right.
Guarantee it. No one's going to work harder than me in here. I just know it. And I've treated myself that way forever. When I worked at a restaurant, I'm like, I'm not even the manager, but I'm like, no one's going to work harder than me here. I
Right.
just always had that mindset. And that was recognized early on. Having a good attitude, working really hard, and you're going to go places and take risks, calculated risks, right? What's the worst that could happen? I
I
always say
love
that to
that.
myself.
When you ask yourself that, what is the worst that can happen? You really have to really ask yourself that and really write it out. What is the worst case scenario? A lot of times when you write it out or say it or talk about it,
It's not
you're
that
like,
bad.
oh, it's not that bad.
I've dealt with worse. Yes, I've dealt with worse than this. You're not breaking anything. You're not dying. You're just moving a little bit south or even overseas, whatever you're doing. We have Zoom, we have Facebook. I can see you and you probably live nowhere near me. It's just,
Yes.
you're
And I
able to
think
maintain connections.
I think it's fair to say that everywhere in the world is looking for hardworking people that
Yes.
can put their heads down and grind, especially if you're working for someone who is a visionary or someone that is building something and they have big, big goals for them. I mean, that's for me when I have someone come to me and say, I want to work for you, I want to work with you. It's like, okay, great. Show me what you can do
Yeah, well,
because
yeah,
I don't
prove
have time to
yourself.
waste training people or holding someone's hand. Like you need to be able to come in, hit the
Hit the
ground
ground
running, and
running.
just work your ass off.
Bingo. Oh, that's good. We can swear on here. Awesome. Yeah,
I think we have a bleep button after in post production.
yeah, you have to work your butt off. At the end of the day, one of my coworkers actually says this all the time. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I rarely am, actually. I literally, I could be in a team meeting with 10 people and they're all going to be in positions not as high as me, but I guarantee you one or two of them is smarter than me in many ways, maybe half of them.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to say that.
What
And
you
it's
want, isn't it, too?
yes,
Oh.
yes. I never want to be the smartest person in the room ever, 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 ever. I have something to learn from every person I talk to. And I'm
Hmm.
not ashamed to say I'm not the smartest person in the room. Half these people probably got a better SAT than me. Half are probably more educated, but I bet you're not going to work harder than me. That's what I always say, and it's done well for me.
And I think for people like you, it can almost feel natural, right? Just you just work hard. You just put your head down. If you could talk to someone considering a big risky move that is afraid, what advice would you give them or give to your old self back then 11 years ago?
This might sound pretty dark. I'm a stoic, so I read a lot of like ancient philosophy, and that's what really changed my life, to be honest
Mm,
with you. I'd like to vision myself in my deathbed. I know this sounds awful, but all the time I think about what would 95-year-old Tony that's
mm,
got days left in his life, what would he say about the 30-year-old guy or the 20-year-old guy that was like, I'm afraid to do this? You're
mm.
probably going to be like, why? You should have done
Why?
more. You should have done more. Like, what's the worst that could have happened?
Right.
That's kind of how I look at things. And I think about any day could be our last day.
Yeah.
After this call, I
Oh,
could hang up, I could walk and get hit by a car and it's over. And then I don't know, like I need to keep going. I need to keep
yes.
doing things. And it's okay to get punched in the face sometimes. As a matter
Yep.
of fact, probably
Yes.
weekly I get punched in the face from something that happened at the company. I'm like, oh my God, I should have known that. It happens. But as long as you have more good things happen than bad, you're gonna be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and I was wondering, was there, when you first were starting out, were there moments where you felt like there was a steep learning curve coming into a really busy, property management market in, Baltimore, Maryland? I'm sorry, like you said, there's a lot of huge competition for these rentals. Yeah, were there learning curves that you had to overcome?
There still are. Every day. And I think that question, it's all perspective, right? Like there's a learning curve there if you perceive there to be one.
Yeah,
If you believe you've already got it, there's no room for growth at that point. What's
so
the point?
true.
And that's an ego. Don't have an ego. I have zero ego these days. Teenager Tony was a major egotistical guy, not this guy. I learned from that. So just knowing that there's always a learning curve. The moment there's not, you need to go do something else,
That's
you know?
right. Oh my gosh, I love that you said that because that's so true. So don't be afraid of not knowing enough or being smart enough. You're gonna have to work through it no matter who you are, where you came from. If you graduated from Ivy League, top of your class, there's still gonna be that learning curve. You got to kind of want to get into it and make some mistakes so that you do learn and get to you. I don't think there's any way you can get to the next level.
No. And what I would recommend to your younger listeners who are kind of like, man, I don't have a property yet. I'm looking, I'm not really sure what to do. Get a mentor.
Mm,
And I know that may not be easy for you. I know you might be like, who's that going to be? There's somebody in your community that's doing this. And there's someone doing this really freaking well. And
yes,
people that are doing things really, really well want to share that. And the ones that are truly great don't charge for their service. They just do it.
that's right.
They want to help. They want to make things better for people. So pick their brain, go to meetups, talk to people. You're going to be blown away at you're going to take away a lot of nuggets every time you go out there and put yourself out there.
Totally. And I think there are a lot of people doing things very well. It's very hard for them because they are in high demand and they need help. They need
Yes.
people that are willing to say, put me in, coach. Yeah, I may not know everything, but I can show properties or I can even just start taking applications. Is there a
Photos.
good entry level? I think it's property management, especially, is a great entry level avenue
Yes.
to real estate.
I would say yes. There's two positions specifically in property management where, man, I wish I started there versus accounting, but obviously leasing agents and
Hmm.
business development managers. My God, and especially the business development managers. Not only are you paid well, it's typically 100% commission, which is scary to people, but they are paid very, very well. They're the highest paid people in the company besides upper management. And
Tell
you're
me a little more about what that position is, or anyone listening, what is a business development manager?
Yeah, yeah. So you're basically the individual, you're the next, how do I explain this? You're the individual that takes the call from the owner, right? So they call into your company and you're picking up the phone or answering the contact us form or what have you. You're explaining what our service is. So in
Mm-hmm.
order to explain what the service of the company is, you have to know a lot about property management. You're going to learn that in training. You don't need to come with all this knowledge. Our best guy in the company used to sell suits. He now is absolutely crushing it. So you're answering the calls, you're going to the property, you're doing the rental analysis with the owner. So you're going to learn how to
Mhm.
comp out properties, how to take photos, how to sell. Selling is huge. If you can knock on doors to sell, you can do anything, in my opinion,
Right. So
especially
true.
these days. No one wants to answer their door. But yeah, start in a position like that, and you're going to learn what, and you're going to talk to every investor that comes into our company. So you're going to know their situation, what they're dealing with, how they analyze the property, pick their brains. Even if they don't sign up with you, try to understand how they got the property, what happened, like how'd you look at the numbers? And then the beautiful part is once the property comes on board, you now have an entire database of properties where you can look at the performing ones that
Mhm.
owners brought on and the owners that had underperforming properties and kind of what we did to make that better. And so now you could be like, oftentimes business development managers are like, I can go do this myself. Some can, most cannot, like run a whole management company, but you can certainly go buy rental properties with that experience.
Yes. Oh, that's a great segue. You did mention you own your own properties.
Yep.
Can you tell us how your first property, is it in Maryland, and how did you find the deal?
Yeah, interestingly enough, through Bay Management Group. So I'm not going to lie, I was the guy that was the analysis paralysis for a long time. I've been an index investor since I was like 18. So I just throw my money in Vanguard and just let it ride. And the growth is there, but it's not exponential like real estate can
Yeah, it's
be.
not exciting.
It's not exciting. It's boring as hell, actually. So when COVID hit, I started to look at things and I'm like, huh, I want to do more with my money besides just set it in a bucket and let it grow slowly. So I approached the owner of Bait Management Group, who I'm good friends with, and I said, Pat, we have a lot of people selling their properties right now out of fear, because the market has just hit such a high at this point. Like people want to get out now, which is fine.
Yep.
Other investors pick them up. But I
Yep.
said, we're not really monetizing that. People are just going and can I buy some of those properties? Do you care? And he's like, as long as they're terminating services because they're selling, that I'm okay with that. And
Mhm.
so literally, I kid you not, I had the conversation and a month later I closed on my first two. It was like insane.
Amazing.
The beautiful thing about working in property management is we place the tenants. I had all the information on the tenants. We have all the maintenance, the contracts, the warranties.
Wow. All
I
your due
knew what
diligence is
I
already
knew what I was
done.
buying. I called the PM and I said, "Hey, so and so, I want to buy 123 Smith Ave. How's that tenant? What are your thoughts?" He's like, "No brainer, buy it right now." And I was like, "Done."
Perfect.
And I didn't even have to do that much due diligence because he
Right.
knew the property for years and I trusted him. So I winged it on the first two, and they're my best performing properties, actually. But one mistake I made is I bought them with hard money, which I didn't understand the lending side of things, which I do now. I was just like, I just want to close fast. Like, that's the most important, just close.
Of
And I
course.
did, but then you have to refi. I didn't put that. I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm gonna have to spend another 10 grand. I didn't even think of that. So it took a while to break even on those, but that's kind of how those happen. And then the others, I worked with wholesalers in the area. They're all in Baltimore.
Yep.
And
Excellent.
then my big flop was a commercial property. Ooh,
Oh,
not the same as
yeah.
residential.
No. What kind of commercial property was it?
So I bought it a year ago. It was an office, so it's a 2 unit side by side. It looks like a duplex basically, but it
Sure.
looks like a home, but it is commercial. It's an office space and a retail space.
Yep.
As soon as I closed on it, I felt sick to my stomach, and I'm like, I just don't feel like this was a good investment. What was I do? I can't explain it. I just felt that way.
Hmm.
Then I called the owner of BMG, who has 600 properties. And I said, "What are your thoughts on this? I probably should have asked you before I bought it." He's like, "Big mistake. Office space, man, right now with everybody working at home." And I'm like, I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have done that. I bought it and they were both occupied. So here's a tip for you guys. When you buy an occupied property, if you do, be very careful. Do your
Mhm.
due diligence, get those bank statements, get the tenant estoppel agreement. Make sure that what you're getting is at face value. I did
Right.
not do that. I trusted the wholesaler who I bought other properties from and found out that they just willy-nilly put anybody in there. And literally 2 weeks before closing, one tenant skipped out in the middle of the night. And then we had an agreement where we kept money in reserves with title
Yeah, I guess.
or escrow. Then 2 weeks after closing, the other one skipped out. So I collected zero in rent for 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, talk about a big mistake. That I was
Oh,
punched in the face pretty hard there. Biggest learning experience in real estate I've had so far. And again, it sucked, but hopefully I'll live another 50, 60 years and that'll be nominal, the 6 grand or whatever
Yes.
it was.
Yeah. Well, I also say too, that lesson it's a lesson for the next deal. You won't ever make that mistake again. So you could be
Never.
saving yourself a future, say at least it wasn't, 100-unit office building, 2 units, grand scheme of things is something at least a little bit manageable to sort out. But I think another great lesson from that experience is when you're dealing with wholesalers, even when you're dealing with owners, the information you're getting is only as good as what they're giving.
Bingo. There's something they're not telling you, probably. You gotta
Most
be,
likely, yes. I
yeah.
think you've got to work that into your models, not to take everything for face value, take the risk into it a little bit
Trust your gut.
and trust your gut. I think your gut too is sometimes it's like your brain or your mind, your eyes are seeing something, but it may not be processing through your mind of, oh, that's the red flag, but your gut is saying, don't do it.
Your intuition, yeah. And even if you're wrong, even if you're just being paranoid or anxious, who cares? Like at the end of the day, you don't feel good about it, don't do it.
That's right.
That's different than taking risks and putting yourself out there. But if you are at looking at a deal, you love the numbers, everything looks great, and then you get to the house and you just don't have a good feeling, run. Like
Run. Yes.
you could take a major
Always
loss.
you can always back out, right?
Oh yeah,
Be calculate, have your due diligence period, be smart with your contracts, work with people that are there to support you to make sure you're still within contract and not doing anything
right.
that could lose your deposit or get you sued for specific performance. You want to make sure you're always maintaining your good business relationships. But if you're getting something that is saying, hey, this is not what I thought it was, it's better to cut out and save yourself. I think so many people say that they're like the best deals are the ones they've walked away from.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. And this by far, I'll tell you what. So I just started buying property 2 years ago. The losses I suffered from this commercial wiped out all the profits because I've only got 9 right now, but it
Sure.
wiped out all the profits I made for all the other ones. So I'm like, I broke even after 2013 because that foolish move I made.
Right.
Because then I had to pay like an agent to place new tenants. Then I had to do all these other repairs I didn't want to do because tenants were already there and they weren't asking for them. Oh my God, that one kicked me right in the butt. But I'm still paying the mortgage. I'm still getting the equity. I'm still getting the appreciation. I'm still getting the tax advantages.
Yes.
Rental property, think 30 years. Don't think today, tomorrow, or even next year.
That's right. And this is a great way to kind of go into the last part of our interview. We want to talk about what you're doing next. So, where are you right at this moment, and what are you looking forward to the next couple of years, whether your own investments or with the company or both?
Yeah, so I'm putting my own investment stuff on hold for right now because our company plans on growing rapidly. So we're looking at other markets. We're in Baltimore, DC, Philly, and Northern Virginia right now. We're looking, and so we're kind of in this hub in the mid-Atlantic. We want to move west and in the middle of the country and maybe down in Florida. So right now we're ramping up our marketing. That's the reason I'm here.
Yes.
And
Okay,
and we're
great.
yeah, and we're really just trying to grow our staff and become a more national figure than we are right now. We're basically go from a mom and pop shop to a regional player to a national player. So we're
Cool.
working our tails off right now, every
Sure.
minute of every day. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Amazing. So, how can our listeners find out more about you?
Yeah, so I'm not historically, I'm more of like a behind the scenes type guy, besides at my company, of course. So I don't have like a ton of social stuff out there, but I am on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, Tony Cook Jr., and then I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's probably the best way to get me. Just type in Tony Cook Jr., Bay Management Group, and I think you'll probably have the link I sent to you. That's the best way to get in touch. I have zero problem just helping people out. So if someone wants to PM me, DM me, whatever you want to call it, and just, hey, I have a question for you. I'm not going to charge you. Reach out. Let's talk.
I'm an elder millennial, so I still say PM, private message.
Same. I'm on the brink. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I very much
I'm
am.
like, damn, what is no? But I think everyone that we have come on our podcast is always open to talking with folks. And I
Yeah.
think that if you're listening to this now and you're interested in property management, it is such a great field to get into because of the longevity. I mean,
Yeah.
when you have 6,500 units that you're managing them well, that's job security because you're
Yes.
owners are going to keep you forever if you're doing your job well and doing your job well for them. That's why I love property management. We do have a branch of that at our team, Cape Barry team, because of just the consistent monthly income. We know we can always count on that. The real estate sales on your own investments, that can be like, it can be an up and down kind of thing. But, having that nice, consistent.
The residual. Yeah. Residual is a big word at our company. Yeah. Residual income is a beautiful thing. You're going to have lots of that, and you're going to have lots of Tylenol for sure.
Yeah. But that's with nothing good is ever easy, right?
No,
I think that's, but there's so much good stuff that comes out of doing the hard work. I think you're a shining example of that. Thank you so much, Tony, for coming on today. We really appreciate it, and would love to have you again in the future when, maybe in 6 months or a year when your company is maybe nationwide, we can come back and hear more about how that happened.
That sounds great. Okay, we'll do a check-in. Sounds good.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you, listeners. You can take a look at our show notes and learn more about Tony Cook and Bay Property Management Group. And I am Kate Barry, your host. This is the Failures to Fortunes podcast, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Real Estate Investing Failures to Fortunes podcast. If you enjoyed today's stories and insights, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us. Remember, your journey in real estate is a marathon, not a sprint. Embrace the failures, learn from them, and turn them into your stepping stones to success. I'm Kate Barry, and until next time, keep hustling, stay inspired, and keep turning those failures into fortunes. Happy investing.